Okay. Hello, YouTube. Hello, art students. So, here's what's getting ready to happen. I'm getting ready to talk about Michelangelo. Now, I will usually say Michelangelo, sounds a little artsy fartsy. He is Italian after all. So I'll kind of alternate between the two. You'll forgive me a little bit. But what we're going to be doing is we're going to be talking about Michelangelo uh, Buonarroti. So to do this in any sort of brief time is just a really tall task. And the reason is because Michelangelo is, in my opinion, the greatest artist to ever set foot on planet Earth. So to do a lesson on the greatest artist that has ever lived, not just today, but of all time, the greatest. So to do a video on him in that short a time is next to impossible. So this is going to be two videos. But even then, I will be absolutely struggling to make these things into any sort of reasonably digestible short thing. So I could do an complete entire video just on the Renaissance and what it means and there are so many amazing things that came out of the Renaissance that we could spend anyway. So what we're going to do is I'm going to try to in just a moment sort of encapsulate the time period that Michelangelo lives in, which will then help you sort of understand who he is and what he was doing. So you might remember this slide. I talked about the swing of time and the artistic change between tranquility and chaos. Also, you could call it classicism or romanticism. So the Renaissance falls under the classical side of time. And if you look at the characteristics of a classical period, they are objective, rational, tranquil, simple, and secular. Now, the opposite of that is the Romantic period or Romantic time, a more chaotic time, which is more emotional, restless, subjective, ornate, and sacred. So you got the Greeks and the Romans. Now, Michelangelo lives in Italy. Italy is the home of Rome, the Romans. So Michelangelo lives among the ruins and buildings of the ancient Romans. So just looking around, he sees the influence of those ancient civilizations, the Romans, that lived 1,000 years before he did. But all around him is their great architecture, the aqueducts and the Parthenon, I mean the Pantheon and the Colosseum and all those things are all around, Italy where he lives. He is primarily a Florentine, lives in Florence, Italy, but he's a well-traveled person and a very well-educated person as well. So you got the Greeks and the Romans, classical, rational, objective, and then you swing and you got over here, you got the medieval period. The medieval period follows. And then as the medieval period wanes and sort of winds down, you're going to swing back to the Renaissance. So when people say the Renaissance is a rebirth, what they're saying is that it's a swing back to that sort of more rational time. And again, that's sort of a weird word to use, rational time. Of course, there are irrational things that happen during classical times, and of course, there are tranquil and rational things that happen during romantic times. It's not an absolute; it's just a philosophy, a zeitgeist. Remember that word? Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So, uh, Michelangelo grows up and comes into his own at the perfect time, for he is the perfect representation of his time, the rebirth of classical antiquity. So that involves humanism. Humanism is the philosophy that man's endeavors here on earth are important. I'm talking about humans, not man. The human endeavors on earth are important. The things that humans do while alive are meaningful. Before that, in the medieval period, your job on planet Earth was to save your soul from damnation and to earn your spot in heaven. That was your entire job during the previous time, the medieval period. But humanism now focuses more on your life here on Earth as a human being. So artists are now in the Renaissance no longer just laborers. So previously, during the medieval period, artists were just toiling and anonymous laborers who would work only for the glory of the church and the glory of God. They wouldn't sign their work. They would just everything they did was like a penance. It was like a endeavor to save their soul to heaven. So artists were just no more than somebody who makes a wagon or somebody who makes a hat. They're just people who made stuff. But now with the Renaissance and the focus on humanism, artists now become stars. Really, they become important, and education is a key to that. So Michelangelo is a very educated man. He is supremely smart, talented, thoughtful. He's a reader and a poet, and just a person who lives deep in his own thoughts, a brooding person. This is the time of the Reformation, and the Reformation means that the church is going through a period of upheaval when people are looking at the old orders of the church and trying to reevaluate, is this the way that we need to do this? So there's fractions and schisms within the church, and the church loses some of its authority. So prior to this, during the medieval period, of course you had your kings and your dukes and your earls. You had nobility, right? But there was like the church was set up as a whole separate ruling body. So as the Renaissance sort of comes along, that authority that was vested in the church is now sort of being broken as reforms are being set up in the church. Now, again, don't get me wrong, the church is still very powerful in day-to-day life, but it's starting to, humanism is becoming that key driver of what's happening. Boy, see, getting this is going to be hard to do in one video. So there's a revival of the Greeks and the Romans, the philosophers and the writings of Greece and Rome, 1,000 years before. So the Bible is not the one and only studied text anymore. Now you're starting to look back at the works of Aristotle and Plato and Homer and you name them. All the Greeks and the Romans. I'm trying to think of a nice Roman philosopher for you. Who's the? Oh shoot! Dang it. So anyway, so now city-states, little small cities, become sort of they're growing into their own. So the more of a political, geographical boundary as opposed to the boundaries set by the church. And this also increases patronage. So, which means that now artists work for people who pay them and not only for the church. Now, of course, don't get me wrong, much art was created for the church. However, not everything, not all things. Art was created at the behest of individuals. So now individuals are requesting it and individuals are making it, as opposed to in the past, the church would command it and laborers would build it, which is a paradigm shift. So in order to try to understand that and try to visualize it, I'm going to show you two pictures here just to kind of wrap your brain around things. So this is a cathedral, a church. This is in Italy, Siena, Italy, and this is the Cathedral of Santa Maria Assunta. So If you just look at it, what I'm going to do is we're going to compare this one to the next one. So I chose this one because it would be something would be that Michelangelo would be familiar with. So if you look at it, this building is very pointy. It has lots of spires and decorations and all that. So if you look at the characteristics, you got emotional, subjective, restless, ornate, and sacred. That's the characteristics in this building, the way that it's very ornate and whatever. So now I'm going to jump down to this one, which is the Cathedral of Florence. So if you're a player of Assassin's Creed, you would recognize this. So this is the Florentine Cathedral. This is the cathedral where, now, of course, don't get me wrong, it was Michelangelo didn't build this, but you can see the change that happens in the architecture as we swing from this more restless, sacred, emotional time into this more rational, tranquil, all the stuff there. Yeah. Yeah. You can see geometry evident in this building. The dome. This dome is a very Roman thing. The Romans love to build domes. This one, is like a pointy and spiky and tall and stuff. So this one kind of the compare and contrast these two kind of shows the difference between a more restless and sacred and ornate time and a more tranquil and rational time. Two buildings that sort of embody those two ideas. Okay, so that sets the stage now for Michelangelo. So I'm going to kind of skip through this kind of fast. You feel free to pause and take notes as you wish. Michelangelo was born in 1475, very early in what we would call the Renaissance. And he lives a long time. He lives like 80-something years. He has a long, full, productive life. And one of the things that makes this video impossible for me to do in one shot is because, not only did he live that long, he worked all that time. So he worked from a very young age to a very old age, producing hit after hit, wonder after wonder, amazing after amazing. His life is just, he produces a lot of stuff. So, we're going to just focus in this video on some of the sculptures, some of the main sculptures of his life. Not all of them, of course, but just a few of them. And then the next video that I do, I'm going to focus in on some of the painting that he did. And all of it is just so ridiculous and amazing that, again, I could do, we could just finish the rest of this class. We could have a whole class just on Michelangelo. Just that's how important. So, born early in the Renaissance, lives a long time. He is considered, again, by me and lots of others, to be the greatest artist that ever lived. He did just amazing things. He was a painter, a sculptor, an architect, a poet. He was just an amazing dude. I'm just skipping past some of this stuff. If you want to pause and see what this says, you feel free. One of the things that's interesting about this is when he's a very young man, a boy, really, he goes and lives in the house of Lorenzo de Medici. And Lorenzo is the patron of the arts in the Florentine city-state. So Michelangelo, every day growing up from just a boy, he was around the elite of the city. He was around, important people with money and education and, philosophy. And he was exposed to all of these great thinkers of his day. So he grew up as a young man, as a boy. He grew up in the quarries nearby. So he was sent to a wet nurse. His mother died early, so he lived in these quarries and where they would dig out stone. And he learned about stone as a child, like a wee little babe. So he knew stone and he knew stone carving and cutting. And everything just came together perfectly to turn him in to just the sculptor of his time. See, how long have we gone? And I haven't even shown you one picture. My gosh. So, this is one of his very early sculptures. And this is done at age 17. Now, I don't know how you are watching this video, but most of my students are right around that age. So think about yourself. What are you doing with your day and as you're quarantined and can't get out? So how are you spending your time? Because Michelangelo at age 17 was knocking it out of the park with this, a beautiful carving, stone carving. And the title of it is The Battle of the Lapiths and Centaurs. So this is, he's already at age 17, a young man, thinking back to, Greece and Rome and the centaurs, mythical beasts of Greece. You can already see that he is being molded by the philosophy of the Renaissance, of the humanism. But that is not to say that he was not a devout Christian, because he absolutely was very, very devout in his belief in Christianity. And you're going to see that sort of combined into his work. Let's get crack-a-lacking, man. So this is where we're going to start, and this is going to be the highlight of our show today. I'm going to talk about a few other sculpture pieces, but I'm just going to focus on this one. No reason particularly why I'm going to focus on this sculpture any more than any other one, other than it's amazing. And it is really his first masterpiece. It's the first thing that he does that sets him apart from other normal human beings. This is called the Pietà. And the Pietà is a word in Italian that means pity. And pity, this is what you call whenever you see Mary, who this is, by the way, Mary, the mother of Jesus, holding Jesus's lifeless body in her arms. That's called a Pietà. Whenever you see Mary, the mother of Jesus, holding the little infant baby of Jesus in her arms, that's called a Madonna. So Pietà is the title of this work, but it's also the title of any work that shows Mary holding the lifeless body where Jesus was crucified, and he's been handed to her. He's been taken down from the cross and handed to her to hold her son. So it's ridiculous. It's amazing. And he did it when he was 24 years old. A youngster. So I'll get a little flabbergasted every now and again as I talk about this, because it's really unbelievable. It just is. The the sculpture is just crazy to look at. It shows this slack, lifeless, soft, heavy body of Jesus cradled in the arms of this, beautiful, graceful, elegant, robed, soft figure. But you have to remember that what you're looking at is a chunk of rock. This is stone. It's not cloth and flesh and skin and wrinkles and fabric. It is all stone. So when you look at this stone thing, but it does such a good job of translating the feel of flesh and bone and cloth, and that's crazy, just crazy. Here's I got a couple of reviews for you. So you can see, again, this a little more close up. You can see one is the fabric, the wrinkles of the fabric, the drapery. So one of Michelangelo's things that he did, which was so incredible, is he made really deep cuts into the fabric. So like he really, really goes into the marble and digs in deep and shows these heavy folds and wrinkles and drapes, which creates dark shadows in the work. But then you contrast that with this sort of, the softness, the muscle tone, the skin, the anatomy of the body. It's crazy. Look how polished it is. I mean, it really looks like flesh. It yields, it presses, it moves, it slumps. So right underneath the arm of Jesus, you can see the hand of Mary there holding the body. And you'll notice that she doesn't actually, so there's not skin to skin contact there with the fingers to the side. There's a cloth that sort of separates that. And in the early church, it was customary when the priest was holding up the communion host, the bread, that the priest would not hold it in his hands because it's so precious. It's the body of Jesus, right? So they would hold that with a cloth. So now you're seeing what Mary is doing. She's holding this body with a cloth because it's too precious to touch. But you can see the way the fingers press into the cloth, and the cloth presses into the muscle and against the bone and pushes the skin. It's cuckoo. It's crazy amazing. You can't say enough about how amazing it is. You can see, other views of this, and up there in the top left, you can see those deep, deep cuts, those deep folds in the fabric. Look at that hand! My gosh! So there's the little nail hole there in the hand where you can see where that's where the nail would have pierced the skin. And if we go back one slide, you see this one right here. Boop, boop, boop. That is the side of Jesus where he was stabbed on the cross. But that those mars, those blemishes, those cuts and stabs, they're very sort of understated. They're not like over the top, gory gashes. They don't take away from the tranquility and peace of this image. Again, the way this cloth sort of drapes, look at the neck there. Look at the way that drapes and wrinkles and look, hiya. What do you even say about that? It's really unbelievable. Just crazy, crazy. A couple of close-ups of the face there. The way the hair sort of curls and spills across the arm, and the face is itself very sort of peaceful, tranquil, calm. This is a person who's just undergone torment and torture, but the face is very sort of reposed. Here are a couple of other close-ups of the face. A lot of people make a commentary about Mary here, how she is so young and beautiful. So Mary would have been at this point somewhere in the neighborhood of 50 years old, 60 years old, whatever. I don't know. You can do the math. But she looks like a teenager. She's sort of a flawless beauty. And Michelangelo's rationale for that was that because Mary was so pure and so perfect a human being, that sin had left no blemish upon her. And then there's another view of Jesus, just sort of just the yeah. Sometimes I get a little speechless. What are you going to say? The anatomy, the softness, the fleshiness, the bone underneath the skin, underneath the hair, underneath the fabric. It's really just inconceivable. It's a mystery how this is done. Now, don't get me wrong. There are since 14 or 1500, there have been many amazing sculptors who would rival this statue. Like, I've seen carvings, statues that you could think, oh, well, that's just as good as the Pietà. Okay, maybe. But this one was first. This one was the one. So if Michelangelo had seen some of the other sculptures, he's like, okay, I'll beat them then. I mean, it was it was unlike anything that had ever been seen before or since, maybe. I don't know. The Pietà in 1970 was attacked and damaged. So a guy whose name I won't mention because I think that a person like this doesn't deserve to be remembered by history other than to say he was a kook. Um, he attacked the Pietà with a hammer and struck it 10 to 15 times, breaking so he struck the face and he struck the arm and parts of the body as well. The nose was broken off of Mary, damage to her eye, um, pieces that were damaged. The arm, I think I have a better picture of the arm on this next one. Yeah, there's the arm is just completely gone. There's more strikes right there. So this kook, this crazy person, really damaged the Pietà, a tragedy. So there was there were thoughts on, well, should we even try to fix this thing? Is this something that we should do? Should we monkey around with Michelangelo's work? And it was eventually decided, yes, they would. Now, here's kind of the weird thing. So you see there's lots of little chips from the stone missing. So these little chips went flying out into the church. And there was lots of people there at the time. And the weird thing is that people actually kept these little chunks of marble. So say what you want about that crazy guy who jumped up there and started, breaking the Pietà. Say what you want about him, but the people that chose to steal those little bits of Michelangelo's statue, man, that's bad. I mean, at least for that guy with the hammer, you can say he was crazy. What was the excuse of the other people? Terrible, I says. So just to sort of finish up with the Pietà, again, we could talk about this a long time. I haven't looked at the time on this video yet. I'm probably going long, but I will just, oh shoot, my Roomba just came on too. So the overall structure of this is a pyramid shape, and Mary's body is actually pretty large compared to her male son. So her son looks small compared to her. Now, part of that is just the fact that she's covered over with all this drapery and stuff. But Michelangelo purposely made her larger like that so that he could frame the body of Jesus and let it sort of relax into this big, soft fluff of blanket of fabric and stuff. So, an amazing bit of business there, the way that it's kind of constructed. You got this big pyramid shape. So currently this statue lives in St. Peter's in Rome. You can go see it. It's behind bulletproof glass now, so you can't go up and whack it with a hammer. But you can see that, I didn't say it was fixed, did I? Yeah, but you can see it has been repaired. They did go in and repair the breaks that were in there. They took a chunk of the marble off the back of the statue and used that to replace the broken bits up there. So today it does exist as it was intended, as Michelangelo first saw it. So you can tell if it's a new picture of Mary, you can see that it's been repaired. There's like a little crack in there, and you can see that those bits have been taken back in and repaired. But yeah, just an amazing bit of business. So here's what I think I'm going to do. I wonder. Yeah, I could stop right here, but I got so much more to do. Okay, I'm going to stop, and then I'm going to have part 2 coming up, and then of course I haven't even got to painting yet. I knew this was going to happen, but that's okay. What an amazing artist! What an amazing sculpture! What an amazing time! Yeah, stuff. Okay, so I'm going to pause this, and then I'm going to stop this video, and then stay tuned for part 2, Michelangelo sculpture, if I can remember how to do it.